Hello and welcome to Art and Self. I'm Cindy Ingram, your host and the founder of Art Class Curator, the Curated Connections Library, and the Art and Self Connection Circle. This is a podcast where we experience the range and depth of what it means to be human, seen through our connections and conversations about works of art. These art conversations are here to show you that art is here for you as a catalyst, a challenger, a coach, and a comfort. Before we get started, take a moment to fill up your lungs with a deep breath. Connect with your body and your mind and your spirit, and get ready to discover what art has to show you. Hello there, this is Cindy Ingram, and before we get started with our fabulous guest, Lyn Carpenter, I want to tell you about a workshop that's coming up. So on March the 14th, 2023 at 5 p.m. Central Time, I am doing a workshop called Your Artist Identity, and it is a workshop that is about your values as an artist. And in that workshop, we will be doing some interactive activities and looking at and interpreting works of art like we do here on the podcast, and doing all of that through the lens of discovering and rooting into what your values are as a creator. So this is for you if you like to make art in any way, whether you identify with the word artist, whether you're a writer, however you are a creator, this will be applicable to you. You can register for that workshop at artandself.com/identity. And you also, if you are a member of the Creativity Cocoon, you can get into the workshop for free. So you can either register at artandself.com/identity, or you can join the Creativity Cocoon at artandself.com/cocoon. And we would love to see you there. It's going to be a really special workshop. I did it for the Cocoon members last week and had a lot of really beautiful insights and connections with ourselves as creators and what we value as creators. So I hope to see you there. And now here we go with our interview and our art discussion with Lyn Carpenter. I would love to welcome Lyn Carpenter to the podcast. Welcome, Lyn.
Thank you. I'm so excited to be here.
Me too. So before we get started, can you introduce yourself to our listeners?
I'd love to. I have a unique profession in that I am a life coach and I partner with horses. So horses are my coaching partners. They have survived on this planet for 56 million years for being in the food chain as prey animals by being able to read the energetic fields around them. That makes them extremely effective coaches because they can read the energy of my client. It's work that I am beyond excited about and feel so happy that I truly found my calling.
Well, I had the ultimate pleasure of getting to experience your coaching a few months ago in Santa Fe. And, I came in believing you. It's like, I believe people when they tell me things. But there was this part of me that was like, is this really true? But when I was there in the pen with the horse, I was completely converted. I understood completely. It was so true and obvious that horse knew exactly what was going on. And every time I think about it, I get chills. It was truly magical. So how did you get into this?
Okay, well, great question. I was 40 years old. I thought I'm going to be an empty nester soon and thought, what am I going to be doing with the rest of my life now that I'm running out of a job soon in the next few years? And I remember I've always been so attracted to horses. I begged my mom to let me take horseback riding lessons, and she never would. And I went, you know what? I've always been attracted to horses. I'm going to take riding lessons. So riding lessons, that was my 40th birthday present to myself. About a year into that, I had the opportunity to get my first beloved soul pony, Bodhi. And not long after I got Bodhi, I learned that my then 15-year-old son was addicted to opioids. And my life was turned upside down. That's an understatement.
Yeah.
He used to go out into Bodie's paddock where I boarded him, and I would just sob into his neck. And I would do this countless times, time after time after time. And he never once put his hoof up and said, "Oh my gosh, seriously, you're going there again today." He always met me right where I was at. And he would stand there like a statue and take my tears. And I'd leave, and I felt so much better. And it wasn't like a good cry better, but it was like I went there in total despair, and I left feeling hopefulness. It was like he had this magic elixir that took away my pain. And so I started following the breadcrumbs. What is happening between my horse and I? And I ended up finding Melissa Pierce and the Touched by a Horse Equine Gestalt coaching method. And I found my calling. I went into her certification program, and I already knew, but from my own personal experience, that there was a horse-human healing connection. But it wasn't until I really started experiencing it that I went on this search to find out what was happening. And I found out there truly is this horse-human healing movement. So that's how I got into it. Yeah.
That is so powerful. You experienced it first, and then that's really beautiful. So, all right. So I know where you're going to tell us a lot of really amazing stories about your work and what you've seen with these horses. But before we do that, let's pull up a work of art, and then we can see what stories the work of art elicits. So I have actually 5 works of art for you. There was 2 by the same artist, and I could not pick between them. So I was like, well, I'll just put them both. So we've got 5 for you today. Okay, let me get my screen share. And then you'll just pick whatever one really feels right to you. And of course, they all have horses. All right. So this one is called Horse by Emma Steinkraus. We have Horse with Magical Rose 3 by Lucas Candle. And then we have another one by Lucas Candle, Ardent Horse. Those were the 2 I couldn't decide between. And then this one is called Horse by Andrea Wan. Usually I tell people to not pay too much attention to the titles, but these titles are pretty safe. Horse.
Yes, Horse.
And then the last one is Dreaming Horse by Franz Marc. Any of them calling to you?
Wow, that's beautiful. I think let's go with the one that was the other horse right before this one. That one really speaks to me.
Okay, sweet.
I would pick that one.
You know, I didn't know which one you were going to go for. I was sometimes I guess. And actually, you know what? I don't think I would have chosen this one because this one I almost took it out at one point, but then I kept it in. So yeah. All right. So this one is Horse by Andrea Wan. We will put all of these images in the show notes, and then you can also find the link to the image on the show notes too. So you can see the image as we talk. You can also open this interview on YouTube and Facebook, and you'll be able to see the image as well while we talk. So what really called to you about this one? What drew your attention?
The fact that the woman's face is shattered. I mean, it's truly, the horse is running. There are several horses running through, and it's almost what I saw upon looking right away was like her facade. They are breaking through her mask, her facade.
Yes. Okay. So you were immediately sort of called into the symbolism of it. So we'll describe it, although I think you've pretty much described it as it's a bust of a woman that we just see her kind of from her shoulders up. Her face and her hair are kind of shattered into pieces. They look like ceramic pieces, like broken plates, kind of. And then there's 6 horses that are kind of running through the hollow space where her inside of her head would be. But then her shirt is like a floral pattern that is solid. That's not broken up. Just her head is broken up. Anything I missed on the description? I kind of just added to yours, but.
No, I think you got it all. Yeah, I love it.
Okay. So what's calling you to talk about first here?
Definitely about I see a woman who has created a facade, a mask, something that she has worn through life. And I see the horses going and saying, no, 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 that's not who you are. And breaking that facade. And I see it as a discovery of let's get to the authentic self.
Yeah. Okay. So I'm wondering if you could, especially for people who are just learning of this work and they're hearing, horse can read your energy and all, and they've heard your example of Bodhi comforting your tears or holding your being a space for you. Can you share some kind of concrete examples of like what that looks like when a horse is
Absolutely
discovering your authentic self? That was a hard question to get out. Thank you.
I said it earlier, but horses are prey animals, meaning they are in the food chain. So they want to know, because they're prey, humans are predators to horses. And really what they want to know is, am I safe with you? That's the ultimate that they're looking for. And what they look for is congruence. So what you're feeling on the inside matches what you're expressing on the outside. And if those aren't congruent, then they don't feel safe. And in my work, they will disengage. So they could be walking side by side with someone, and then she says something. I say she because I typically work with women, but she may say something that she doesn't truly believe or align with. And the horse will be like, oh, wait a minute. No, that energetically what you're feeling inside and what you just spoke, those don't match up. And so they will disengage. I see it all the time in my work. And the beauty of this is they really want us to show up as who we truly are, our authentic selves. And a big niche that I work with are recovering people pleasers. And what I see so often, time and time again, is people they've spent their lives making everyone else happy, putting everyone else's needs above their own for a multitude of reasons, almost always starting in childhood as a way to be accepted. So what I see when we start unearthing with my clients, this authentic self, is they have no idea who that authentic self is. And so the horses in this image to me are like, oh, let's go discover.
Yeah, I can imagine, if someone were like, you just sort of, I can imagine what, someone would say, like, well, as a, I've been a people pleaser in the past before. It's like you want to say what people want to hear, whether or not you believe it or not. There's always just like that sort of script that you say where it's like, oh, yeah, everything's fine. Or, yeah, I can do that. Or you're saying yes when you don't need to. And that's like that thing that we can read as humans is like the voice changing up, because it's like, oh, that the way they answered that question didn't sound exactly right. It's just amazing to me that the horse can pick that up, not like knowing the language. They're like listening to like the little subtle voice changes and the way you're moving your body. Like it's so cool.
Yeah,
that they can do that.
It's so amazing. I love that these 6 horses they're just like shattering this whole, her mask, what she wears out into life, and probably who she even thinks she really is. Because I know with the women I work with who have been people pleasers their entire lives, their number one goal is to be loved and accepted. And so by out there, though, other people, But the horses see right through that facade. And they're like, no, 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 no. That's not you. And I love the way they demonstrate that.
The horse being able to notice that, it like kind of calls them out on that in such a like loving, gentle way. Like you as the coach can say, do you really believe what you're saying, or something like that? But if the horse's behavior notices, like does, the horse, turns and walks away, or whatever the horse does, it's a way for the person to sort of be called out in it's just a like interesting way. And what I loved experiencing your coaching is that you wouldn't interpret the horse's behavior for us. You would have us do it. So you're like, oh, notice what Romeo did just there. Why do you think that happened? And then it challenges the participant in the coaching to notice where they're not being congruent, and notice like what they need in that moment. And then there was such a really beautiful thing to witness, that it's like you weren't feeding us these interpretations, like we were creating them ourselves. So I loved that. I was able to get to the core of what was happening so quickly too. It's pretty amazing.
I think as coaches, and you probably, I don't know, maybe you agree, maybe you don't, but I believe in the model that I practice is a coactive coaching model. So I am on a level playing field with my client. Everybody, I believe we all have our own answers within us. So the really beautiful thing about the horses is they can see the blind spots that we as humans have, that I as a coach don't necessarily have the ability to see, but they do. And so if I tell someone what I think it means, it has no impact because the client has her own answers. So,
yeah.
Yes, you're exactly right. So what does this mean to you? What feeling is this bringing up within you? And does it feel familiar? That's oftentimes a pretty powerful prompt in our coaching sessions.
Yeah. Well, it's really true to what I do with art as well. It's the whole time I was, because I got to be coached, but I also got to experience watching you coach others. And the whole time I'm like, this is exactly what I do with art, but she's doing it with the horses. And I was like, my mind was just like continually being blown, because I was like, oh, this is the same thing. It's just, you're adding like a third thing that kind of creates the space that gives you it adds a layer of safety, a layer of like symbolism, a layer of connection and understanding, and an ability to go deeper than you would have gotten if it was just the two people. And yeah, that I really loved that aspect of it, especially. This is just going to be me raving about my experience at your ranch. Or no, wait, do you call it a ranch? Is that the right word?
Yeah, it's a little ranchette. We have 12 acres, so I can't really call it a ranch, but
yeah.
So I have
your land. And then, okay, so the second thing I thought of while you were talking is about the people pleasing, is that so a people pleaser is saying what they think you want to hear, so that they make that person happy, so that they're loved and belong. And then the horse completely flips that around, in that they're actually rewarded for being their true authentic self. Have you seen that? Like, do you have an example of like what that has looked like?
Like, are you asking me a client example, a real life example? Because I've got a bunch of things.
I think that would be really nice to hear, I think.
So I had a women's group, and one of the women stepped up for coaching and revealed that she had been diagnosed with a very aggressive form of cancer. And this was a Saturday, and she was starting chemo on Monday. And she is a single mom of a 9-year-old. And I said, oh, gosh, I hope you have a village around you to help you through your chemo. But to help you with your son. I mean, being a single mom with a 9-year-old and going through chemo. She said, oh, no, I have learned through life that I can only count on myself. And my horse walked away, clear to the other side of the round pen the second she said that. Like, oh, you don't need me. And so I continued talking with her and just following curiosity. And I asked her, well, what did the doctor say your side effects to your chemo would be? And she said, it's going to be pretty brutal. I'm going to be sick. And I said, okay, so let's think about this. How are you going to be sick and barely able to take care of yourself and take care of your son? And it was like she had this huge epiphany, aha. And she said, I'm not going to be able to do it. I'm going to have help. And the second she aligned with that aha, that truth, my horse came right back and was just right there with her. And my handler, I didn't realize this at the moment, but my handler pointed out that I was boarding horses. So I had 8 horses on my property at the time. And she said, oh my gosh, look, every horse from the 6-acre pasture that we were in, this was back in Texas, had come in and was literally circling the round pen, like, we are your community. We are here. We've got you. Oh. It was, I still to this day, Cindy, get goosebumps.
I know, I just got head to toe. Oh my gosh.
So there's a great example of how this, and not that she was being inauthentic, because she really had been hurt so many times by opening her heart that she had built this wall around her heart. And she really did believe that it's the world. She can count on herself. But here, this awareness of there's no way I'm going to be able to get through this and not have support from a village. And it was just such a beautiful, beautiful example and illustration for her. But I mean, every mouth in the group dropped, just like, unbelievable. This did not just happen.
Yeah. And that's just so powerful too, because one, the aha moment would have been powerful either way, that the realization that I need help and but to have the realization and then to immediately see that the help is there, that you are supported, that you do have like the love of all of these animals who are just there to just support you. It
was unbelievable. And everyone was in shock and awe of it. But for her, she was just blown away. She could not believe it. And she felt so, I said, well, do you have a village around you? And she said, I do. I have a huge family. And her awareness was like, oh, my family is going to really be happy that I'm willing to open my heart up again. And so it was very profound. It was so beautiful.
Oh, that's fantastic. Okay. I feel like I could just hear you just sit here and tell me all these stories. Okay. Let's go back to the art. Is there anything in the art that, as we've been talking and you've had that on your screen, is there anything that you're curious about? Anything that is drawing your attention?
Yeah, there's several things. Her outfit, the flowers, they almost like Hawaiian, what's that flower? Hibiscus. Yeah. And her garment feels very tropical, but that's not the word I'm looking for. It's very feminine to me. I don't know. There's something about that garment that she's wearing and the tenderness of flowers and plants. And all that energy up top with the horses, because horses are galloping. I mean, you can hear the earth, you can feel the earth vibrating. So that to me seems like such an interesting opposition. The force of the horses and the delicacy of the flowers. I don't know what that, I don't know, but there's something there.
And I'm kind of imagining her whole, like without the horses, just seeing imagining what she would look like. And she's got this, very boldly patterned shirt on. But then I didn't think I noticed it before, but her hair is half purple. It sort of starts purple and then goes down to like fades into white.
Yes. And that spoke to me too, because it's odd though, because it's opposite of what I would imagine. Like I'm letting my gray come out after years and years and years of color. So I noticed the white hair and I thought, oh, that's like crone like. And yet it's opposite of what I would expect. Like, do you see what I'm saying? The purple at the top feels like it's reversed of what.
Yeah. And it's interesting too, because like with the boldness of the purple, the boldness of the shirt, potential for letting her grays out, like those are all things that you would see in a person and think, oh, they are being authentic. They're being bold. They're standing, having, making choices that, they want to stand out or whatever. But then at the same time, she's got this expression on her face that is very flat and kind of blank.
It is expressionless. And that's why I saw like the mask of, a mask, it's one expression. It is a total expressionless look. Her eyes almost look, they just look hollow, empty.
Yeah. It's like that emptiness that is now that we're now seeing because it's broken through. It's like if she were whole, I think we would sense that emptiness anyway because of that, especially her eyes.
Yeah, her eyes. They feel to me so hollow. Like she's, it resonates with. I had a client in my round pin the other day who said, I don't know who I am, and I don't know how to fix it. And that feels familiar. This was a client who spent her whole life trying to get her mother to love and validate her.
Yeah.
And she, I'm guessing, I don't know, she didn't tell me how old she is, but I bet she was in her late 40s and still trying to get mom to love and approve of her. And she had that just like, I've been beating my head up against the wall for my whole life. I don't know. She was just at her wit's end, but she had that like look of, who am I?
Yeah, I think there's something that's disturbing me about this artwork because I did have many moments of my life that I was thinking, who am I? I felt, I was hiding who I was. I was hiding a lot about who I was, and I was, trying to fit in and all these things. And then, looking back on it, I envision it more like I was removing layers that were sort of societally put on me and conditioned on me, and I was removing all those layers to find like the real me underneath. But in this one, like it's all broken up, but there's nothing inside, and I'm like, where if that's her mask and the horses are getting to the authentic self, like where is her actual authentic self if it's hollow inside? That's what's throwing me off about this.
Yeah, and I see it more as a blank slate. I think when our identity has been people pleasing, and that's how we've gotten our love and validation is externally, and then it's usually women in midlife, my experience, who just, they're tired, they're angry, they're resentful, and it's like, enough is enough. Who am I? And oftentimes they really don't have a clue. So I see that as more of this blank slate. And I always tell clients, follow the breadcrumbs. Like I said, I followed the breadcrumbs after my experience with Bodhi.
Yeah.
That's what this looks like to me. She's this blank slate of, who am I? And it's like a blank canvas.
Yeah. And then she can take all these pieces and decide what to do with what's left or create something completely different or
Yeah, go on a renaissance, like a discovery. It's this whole thing of discovery. And I don't know. Yeah, I mean, I get what you're saying about it's disturbing to you
yeah.
because it's like when we go on our own healing journey, it's the proverbial onion of the layers.
Right.
And like you just said, she's totally, I mean, like this is busted up.
Yeah. But then now, once you've listening to you talk about it, I can kind of see a new way how it can relate to me. Somewhat, trying to do that is there have been times in my life where I've kind of been ignoring something I knew to be true. It's just like, I'm ignoring this. I don't want it to be true, but I'm ignoring it because I knew if I acknowledged it, that it would be a shattering, that it would be like everything blown up and everything having to be created from scratch. And that's terrifying. So yeah, I can see like she's at the point where she's like, okay, this is what's going to have to happen. And the horses, I suppose, are helping her through that.
And the horses they all have on like masks themselves.
Yeah.
So that's really interesting to me as well. And they're all purple masks. So purple is very significant in this to me. I'll say it that way. Let me see chakra wise. Oh, and now I'm going to have to explain chakras.
Oh, go for it. I have a feeling that a lot of people who listen probably are people who know what chakras are. But yeah, I'm sure there are people that don't.
So chakras are energy centers in our bodies, and we have a ton of them, but there are 7 main chakras in the human body that start at the base of our spine and go all the way up to the top of our head. And so the third eye is purple. So that's like intuition.
Mm-hmm.
The spot right between your eyebrows is purple. So there's, I don't know. I just felt all of a sudden I realized purple's really significant in this piece of art. So,
well, and to me, purple has always, it's that sort of deep purple that's on her shirt is it's my favorite color. So I'm like, yes, I love that. I'm like, I'm in. But it's always to me felt so like rich and like mystical and magical. Like I think of galaxies and nebula and like the moon. Not that the moon is that color, but to me, like that, when I look at that color purple, it's like it has all the mysteries of the world in it. I mean, it's silly, but that is exactly what I really do think of it that way. And so I can see how like, the intuition, and it also to me, it feels like a very, I don't want to say feminine color, but it's like, the divine feminine. It feels very like that kind of vibe. And so it's like, it adds a richness to this, I guess.
Yes, it does. It's so interesting to me that all of the masks, and I don't know what you call those on the horses. I'm just calling them masks, but that they're all purple and that they all have them on. So that's really interesting.
Yeah, I mean, when do horses wear stuff like that?
I think back to like royalty times where knights and that's what I think of with horses wearing masks is knights and royalty. And again, think about knights, they have so much armor on. Yeah. So there again, it's the same thing with.
And purple is usually in a color associated with royalty as well.
Exactly. I was thinking that right off the bat when you were talking about purple, I was thinking royalty. And reminds me of being in the Vatican. And a lot of purple in the Vatican. Wow. Yeah, that's an amazing image. I would love to know what the artist intention was in this creation for sure.
Yeah, I don't ever read about that in advance, but And often with a contemporary work of art, they don't tell you. So there's no one out there that are out interpreting it and like, giving and interviewing artists about their individual pieces. There is some of that, but often I might have just found it randomly on some, I don't even remember where I found this one. So
it's so funny that this is the one you almost didn't include.
I know.
And I chose that one.
Well, I have this like list of characteristics that I want it to be captivating. And I was like, okay, it's definitely captivating. I want it to be connected, and it's connected. It's got the horse. It's got I could see the authenticity component, and I want it to be communicative, that it's kind of telling a story. But my fourth one is that I want it to be complex, that it can kind of have multiple interpretations. And so with this one, I almost thought I was like, this could be too obvious of an interpretation. And sometimes when it's too obvious of an interpretation, you don't have anything to talk about because you're like, oh, it's very clear. So that was my hesitancy on this one, that I was like, oh, is it too? But we're proving that to be wrong, because we're finding it was just kind of right on the cusp.
Yeah, I also see, like, granted, in a puzzle you put things together where they go, but she's shattered into a bunch of puzzle pieces. So that just struck me as well.
It's making me think of, I don't know if you know this, there's a Japanese art form that when something breaks, they repair it using gold. Have you ever seen those?
Yeah, yes.
It's called like kintsugi or something like that. And so part of me keeps like trying to piece her back together, but imagining that it's fixed all with the gold.
There's a quote, I wish I could remember who said it, but that it's the cracks where how the light gets in through the cracks.
Yeah.
So there's certainly a lot of ability for light to get into those cracks, because
yeah. Yeah. It's interesting too how there's like no background at all. Yes. There's no context for like where these horses came from, like and what's going on around her. It's really I want a story for how they got there. But
yeah, that's a good
But they match her shirt. Like they've got the yellow and the hot pink and the yellow for their little masks and their little eye holes, that maybe they came off of her shirt.
That's a good point. Where did they come from? Wow. Yeah, that is definitely an image that takes me into a lot of different places of curiosity.
Yeah. Is there any other part of it that is kind of drawing your attention?
Yeah, that piece between her ear and eye is black. And it doesn't appear to be the same color or texture as her hair. And there's a high contrast between the light and the dark.
Yeah. Yeah, it looks like the other side, like inside of the hollow head is black. Yeah. So if you see, and so it's like,
I see. Mm-hmm.
That's an interesting choice, because I would think that, I don't know, that it would be flesh colored on the other side too, if this were like a face broken open. But the fact that it's black on the inside really like enhances the fact that that face is not like her real face.
Well, that takes me to the shadows. The parts of us that we hide from, not just ourselves, but I mean, mainly shadow parts are parts of ourselves that we've hidden from ourselves. But when you said that, I thought, oh, that's representative of the shadow. Do you know? Have you heard? Do you understand? Do you know what the shadow is?
Was that I was about to ask, because I have heard of shadow work and people talk about the shadow, but I've never actually like read about it. I'm like, what exactly?
So
what exactly is this shadow?
Yeah, there is an author. She's since passed on. Her name is Debbie Ford, and she wrote a book called The Dark Side of Light Chasers. And it was really a book that helped me it was one of the first books I read on my healing journey. And it says that we all are these big, magnificent mansions, and yet in our authenticity, and yet through our upbringing, parents and teachers and clergy tell us, oh, good girls don't. And so that part of ourselves that we expressed, that we may have gotten shamed for expressing, we take that part of ourselves and we throw it into the closet, and a dark closet. And so in her book, Debbie Ford says, so we go from these magnificent mansions to living in like these 1-bedroom shacks, because all of our beautiful parts of ourselves we've hidden away into the shadow. So I'm a Gestaltist, and Gestalt is a German word meaning closely translated in English to wholeness. There's not an exact translation, but it's a therapeutic modality. And Gestalt says we all have these countless parts of ourselves, and some are really known. So like the facade, I see her, her facade, those are the parts of herself that she really knows. But then there's countless other parts that make up the whole of who we are that we've shoved into the shadow. And so that the reverse of the light pieces being the dark, me represents shadow.
Oh, thank you for explaining that, because I'm always imagining, I guess I just interpreted shadow as like the sort of dark evil thing. And so I'm like, is it all of our dark evil sides? And I'm like, so, okay, that was a very good explanation. So now I don't know. Now I know.
Yeah, it's actually these beautiful, brilliant parts of ourselves that we have shoved away because they didn't get us the validation. And yet they all make up who we are, and to shine the light of our love and give them our awareness. And maybe, that's what these horses are doing, is bringing her the opportunity to see all of these parts of herself that have been fragmented and not accepted and loved. So,
and it's breaking her open and shine and allowing the light to go to those dark spaces.
Yes, exactly.
Oh, love that.
Me too.
I just got chills on that one. Love it. Okay, I have a half of a question that's trying to turn into a full one. It's about authenticity, and this feels like it's the theme of every part of my life in the last couple of years. And then in every one of these podcast episodes, authenticity continues to come up. It comes up over and over and over and over again. And then I know that such a big part of your work is authenticity. I guess I would love to hear you speak to like why authenticity is so important. Like,
sure, I believe you may or may not agree. And I always tell people before they come coach with me, I believe we're all eternal souls having a human experience. So if someone's wanting to coach with me, I tell them, you must be able to relate to that general belief. If you don't, it's okay, but I'm not your woman, because that's the language that I speak. I can only do me. And so I believe we're all these eternal souls coming to earth to have this human experience, and that we really are. We come into this world as these authentic beings, and then we go through life being shaped and molded by external society, parents, like I've said earlier. It's almost like these external forces and situations shape and mold us. And oh my gosh, Cindy, I looked at that I have goosebumps. So I looked at the image in that maybe this is the shaped and molded version of this woman who there's this authentic self, the soul. Okay. So I see it as the soul, the higher self. And I feel like it happens in midlife. It's like, okay, but that's not really who I am. Like, who am I really? And if I'm not worried about upsetting people by being true to who I am, that I'm truly more authentic in the world, and I'm a better service to humankind and to myself when I'm who I truly am. And I think we spend so much time shape-shifting for love and approval and validation. And yet inside, we're withering away and dying because that's not who we truly are.
Yeah.
And so to me, authenticity is about, what are my values? What do I stand for in life? What am I here to do on this planet? And so to me, authenticity is just knowing the shadows, the light parts, the dark parts, and bringing them all into our awareness. Sometimes it serves, like, okay, I have a part of me that can be a real bitch when she needs to be. And yet, okay, bitchy is not acceptable, but if I'm trying to get a refund from AT&T and it's now 7 months later, time to pull out the bitch and let her get the refund. So it's really about honoring just all parts of ourselves and truly, who are we as an expression of the divine.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I loved when you were talking about, the human or divine, what did you say? Exact words, the having a human experience, the first part, divine beings.
That we're all eternal souls.
Eternal souls.
Experience.
Yeah. And so like, I can see her molded version of self breaking, and then like, we don't see the eternal soul. The eternal soul is just kind of is expanding out of that space. So like, I was saying, well, there's nothing inside. I'm like, what if there is? What if it is everywhere now? And it is like her soul expanding. I'm like, oh,
yeah,
changed everything. And that's why it's just all white. It's.
Thank you for asking that question, because as I talked about us being shaped and molded by our external, all of a sudden I was like, oh my gosh, that's breaking free of that. The horse is helping her.
Yeah. Good. I'm glad. I was like, I know why, but it's also like, I just want to keep talking about why. And I'm like, I loved it. It showed up in the artwork so beautifully. Wonderful. Okay. Well, we are coming up on an hour of talking. Is there anything left in the artwork left unsaid, or do you think you never fully get it, but like,
no, I feel like the last piece of it that I just got was like, whoa, that was really, for me, that tied it up as far as that's really amazing.
Yeah, that I agree. I just want to make sure we had any final thoughts. Well, okay. Thank you so very much for sharing all your thoughts and stories about your horses and your experience with coaching. It was really beautiful to hear more about how you got into this work and everything. Because now knowing how you got into this work, I'm like, oh, of course, she picked this art. I want to pick this artwork. How can our listeners follow you online? How can they experience your coaching? Can they?
So I am on Facebook as Blissful Heart Coaching, and also Lyn Blank, BLANC Blanc Carpenter. And then you can follow me on Instagram, Lyn_Carpenter_coach. I do a daily love note to self on my social media that's intended for me, but also a reminder for all of my followers that the only person that can love us and truly love us the way we want and need to be loved as ourselves. And so that's just of why I do the daily love note to self. And yes, I do coaching via Zoom. I also would love to have groups or privates out here to my property in Santa Fe. Santa Fe's a beautiful place to visit. I do private sessions. I also do customized VIP private retreats. So if someone wants to do some really deep dive coaching, that is something that I offer. That is one of my passions. And my website is blissfulheartcoaching.com.
Awesome. We will link to all of that in the show notes. And like I said in the beginning, I had the experience to be out on Lyn's property and and spend time with her coaching and her horses. And it was just something I really will never forget. It was definitely I even said it then. I was like, I think I will be different from now. From now on, I will be different. And now I'm like, I don't know, 4 months away from that. I'm like, yeah, that was true. Like it was one of those moments. So you're like, I'm now different. So thank you for that. And then thank you for this conversation today.
Thank you, Cindy. I'm so honored to be a guest. I appreciate it so much.
Thank you so much for listening to Art and Self. And if you loved what you heard, please consider leaving me a rating or a review on iTunes. And share this episode with one friend who you know needs to hear what we talked about today. You will find links to the artworks that we discuss over at the show notes at artandself.com. And you can also join my email list to get notified of all of the new upcoming episodes. The videos of these episodes are also available over on YouTube at Art and Self. And you can also follow me on social media, on Instagram at Art and Self and on Facebook at Art and Self Cindy. Thank you so much for listening and have a wonderful week. I'll see you next time.